Ideal Protein is a doctor-designed, coach-led ketogenic weight loss protocol that uses food as medicine to empower you to lose weight and live your healthiest life.
And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show. This is Group Therapy, a special edition of our weekly show where I get to sit down with my editors here at Livingston Parish News to talk about what's going on in the parish. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news, and today, to get reacquainted with everybody, we're going to start on my and the viewers' right.
That would be me. Oh, this is David Gray, lifestyle editor with the news. It's hard to tell who's left or right.
That's why I try to hold up my hand, kind of give y'all a signal.
Right.
So my right. So yes,
David Gray, lifestyle editor with the news, and on my right.
Hey, this is Rob D. Irma, and I'm sports editor here at the Livingston Parish News.
And we appreciate you guys joining us. We appreciate your patience as we had a tough couple of weeks, just like everybody else. We didn't have power and internet here at the building for quite some time. And when we did get internet back, it wasn't very stable. But starting this week, things were starting to even back out, at least here in the Denim Springs area. We do know that there are some sections of the parish that are still struggling pretty mightily. David will cover that with you. And, of course, it does fall into the sports realm as well. So, Rob, we're going to cover that with you. But first, David, let's start with, what's going on with Ida. And, of course, unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to have the same wind problems that we had with Ida, but it does look like we're going to catch some outer bands of Nicholas, somewhere between 10 to 12 inches of rain, I'm saying.
Well, I mean, we all know that Ida went directly through Livingston Parish. At first, the projections before it hit on August 29th, it was supposed to go through Baton Rouge. Then after it made landfall, it shifted to the east, which put it, like I said, the worst part of the storm, affecting the eastern parts of Livingston Parish. The eye passed about 2 miles outside of the town of Livingston. And I remember talking to the mayor there, JT Taylor, and some of their responders, the night of the storm. All of a sudden, there's just abrupt calm that just swept over the town. They're like, God, I think this is the eye. It's just crazy how they, it passed, that directly in Livingston Parish, which that put, the eastern side of hurricanes is always the rougher side. And that put areas like Albany and Springfield and Rob, our sports guy, in Hammond. I mean, that put, those are the areas in the Baton Rouge area that really took the brunt of the storm. And I mean, there's still some areas out of, in Livingston Parish, like you said, that don't have power. And we're, more than 2 weeks out now from, it's more than 2 weeks now out from Ida. It seems like the last 2 weeks have been a year. But things are getting, little better. Debris pickup has started in the parish. I know in Denim Springs, went to the council meeting last night, and they said that the Ceres Environmental has completed its first pass through the city, so they're about to start doing their second pass. So that has started. Bull advisories, which were Ward 2 Water District, the biggest one in the parish. They had that bull advisory lifted a few days ago, and that was an issue. The town of Albany lifted theirs just yesterday, I believe. So things are getting a little better, but like I said, there's still some people who don't have power, and there's a few thousand Dimco customers in Livingston Parish that don't have power. Most of energy customers in the parish have had their power restored, but like you said, now we got Nicholas coming, and it looks like we're going to get the brunt of the rain from Nicholas because it's supposed to stall over the state as it's moving. So it's going to be really slow moving. So like you said, not going to have the wind damage, but I mean, some places could see, they use the word excessive amounts of rainfall. So, I mean, that's kind of what we're expecting now with Nicholas, which makes it worse because a lot of debris hasn't been cleaned up. Storm drain systems are, still have some debris in them. So, I mean, you could see more flooding than usual from a rain event like Nicholas just because we're still in response mode to Ida.
Yeah, so remember, trying to get that debris down to the side of the road so Ceres can pick it up, but also remember, try to keep it out of your ditch. I know that's a tough balancing act. It was very hard for me, I know. But the best thing to do is to try to spread it out as much as you can in front of your house. They will pick all of it up, but try your best to keep it out of your ditches. And if you have subsurface drainage, keep it away from the culverts. There it is. I got it. The culverts and the box culverts that eat up that water and push it underground. One of the things that I did want to mention to folks, kind of an interesting piece of this is the brown watering effect that was described as why a lot of people have asked, or I've seen asked, why was this so bad as compared to things like Katrina, Gustav, that sort of thing. There's not as much marsh in South Louisiana anymore. It continues to deteriorate due to the dredging of the Mississippi River. And it was described, brown watering is basically the storm surge pushes water further inland.
Mm-hmm.
And used to be we had about 80 to 100 miles of actual land in between us and the Gulf of Mexico. Would eat up a lot of energy from those storms. It's not the case anymore. We have talked a lot about drainage in Livingston Parish and how storm surge now affects Lake Maurepas. Well, now it affects us in a different way, too. We don't have the same land buffer that we used to for these storms. So that's also what caused Laplace to flood. A lot of that water getting pushed further and further north. Just a tough situation. Of course, it has affected the east side of the parish. We had a little football. David will come back to you. But we did have a little football this last Friday. And we're going to start with the guys on the eastern side of the parish because one could argue that it was a little tougher for them to pull their games off than the other three. Right. So first and foremost, we'll start with Albany. Just kind of a lot of them still don't have power over there. Right. A lot of those folks. Yeah. So they tried to pull something together, but it was a pretty decisive win for St. Michael.
And it winds up 34-0. It was 12-0. I think David went over there 12-0, probably midway through the third quarter or so, and had some turnovers deep in their own territory, shortened up the field for St. Michael, and they're able to score. And just some things, and talking to Coach Knight, he's offensive line. He said they've had, since the spring scrimmage, going back to the spring, they've had a different starting five on the offensive line every time out, whether it be from COVID or disciplinary issues or whatever. And you well know you've got to have some consistency on that offensive line. They've got to start working together, and things have to fall together. And they just haven't been able to establish that yet. That's one of those things that they're looking for. They're going to be traveling to play Springfield on Thursday, which we're doing this Wednesday afternoon, so that'll be tomorrow night.
The battle for I-12.
Battle for I-12, right.
Let's talk about Springfield. They opened it up with a dub. Again, facing a very similar situation as Albany leading up to that game. Not a whole lot of power in the area. Right. Just kind of a tough situation for those kids, but they were able to find a win. So what did they do right, and what are they looking for?
They're getting some production from some young kids. Jatoris Buggage, basically in his first start, he rushes for 190 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Ivan Fletcher, who's come over from the basketball team at receiver, had 2 touchdowns, and they're really high on both of those guys. And Coach Surpass, seems to think what they've got, some other guys, Brenton Allen and some of those guys who haven't really, and you don't want to say they haven't really contributed, but those are the guys they're looking for, and Rick Vicknair, those guys are coming in, those are the guys they're looking for. So they're getting contributions from some other guys, so it just gives them some opportunity. And like you said, I think they're just starting to hit, not really their peak, but the sky's kind of the ceiling's, you don't want to say unlimited, but there's some potential there to have other people be able to contribute. And if you saw Albany or Springfield in the Albany Jamboree, they were able to kind of get Rick Vicknair there and Ivan Fletcher. These guys are kind of stepping up and showing what they can do. So it kind of, they're really high on what these guys will be able to maybe accomplish over the rest of the season.
So it's going to be interesting to see those two teams duke it out. Always kind of a rivalry.
Yeah.
But I know your preview said that both of them are kind of looking to get past Ida and just kind of pull it together.
And talking to both of them, it says, talking to Coach Knight, he's like, we just want to get back to some kind of normalcy because there's really none. I mean, you go back to today and we're looking at Wednesday and Springfield and Albany don't go to school because of, flooding and things like that. So it's another day you don't have the regular routine, if you will. So, and Coach Surpass said this will probably, this could be that thing, that game that people can come out and forget about it for a little while and just come watch some football. And, it's Springfield and Albany, they're kind of not really focusing on a rivalry. They're looking to get themselves better right now. So, and if you've ever watched Springfield and Albany playing anything, it's going to be competitive. It's going to be interesting and should be a fun thing. But you've also got to keep in mind, talking to Coach Knight, it's remember, we're probably going to get wet tomorrow night. So that could have an impact on what both teams do tomorrow.
Will be interesting to see as that weather comes through that we discussed earlier from Nicholas. Now, moving to the bigger schools, we're going to I'm saving the drama for last. Those folks up in Watson, we're going to talk about that game in just a minute. First, let's just talk about, this new season for the Brett Bitt era at football at Denham Springs High School. This is year 2. And they started off. They drummed East Iberville. I mean, it wasn't even close. So, what were the takeaways for the Jackets from that game?
You get to it, and it's basically getting off to a fast start. When you're talking about East Iberville gets pinned back on the opening kickoff at like their 3, I believe, and first play of the game, you got a safety.
Right.
So it's right off the bat you're scoring, and before you know it, at the end of the first quarter, it's 30-0, and they've scored in many different ways. Had an interception return for a touchdown, had some big pass plays, and they just kind of kept it going. And then what helps in the second half, they're able to kind of go to the bench and let some of these younger guys get a taste of, like Coach Beard said, the Friday night lights, where they're sitting out there going, wow, this is what it's like on Friday night, which is not something you necessarily maybe get to do all the time during the season, especially in season openers, because you're still trying to figure things out. And I think that's where they are. It's just trying to carry that momentum over. They'll be playing at Cecilia on Friday, which for Coach Beard, he said he's trying to play some different programs that maybe Denham Springs hasn't played before, just so he kind of wants to get a feel for what they do, other teams do, and then give his guys a chance to see what other teams do and see in comparison to what they do in terms of the atmosphere and things like that, and get used to those things.
Well, and who do they have coming up?
Cecilia. They're going to try to Cecilia gotcha. on Friday.
I had never heard that team name until you said it. That's why I had to ask again, because it was like, let's repeat that. Cecilia.
Cecilia, yes.
So that's who Denham will face this week. Let's get through the other two. Walker didn't have the result. Again, a lot of wonky moving around.
Yeah.
Tough way to start. You're supposed to go to Sandoval and you end up at Dutchtown. Didn't get the results they wanted. Right. What did Coach Mahaffey say?
Right now, in talking to Coach Mahaffey yesterday, he's just looking for, especially on the offensive side, looking for some consistency. They had some spots where you're just looking to get some things going, and he pointed to they had a penalty on a return. It could have been a touchdown. Got called back. He said they had a botched pooch kick that turned into a touchdown for Santa Ma. So it's little things, just trying to get things back on track and things like that. And they'll be hosting Mandeville on Friday at 7. And he said one of the big things they're looking for on defense is, tackling's always an issue. I think every time I talk to Coach Mahaffey, it's a tackling thing. But he said they want to be able to tackle in groups, not just one guy on one guy. They want to have that mass tackling effect to take down runners and receivers.
So looking for a little bit of consistency on both sides of the ball.
Right, both sides of the ball. That's what they're looking for.
So last but certainly not least, the Live Oak Eagles went on the road to Mississippi and win a thriller right at the last second. So tell us a little bit about that last play and then what Coach Westmoreland's looking for them to improve on going into this next week.
It comes back to they score on I think it was a 56-yard pass play. C.J. Davis pulls it in with a minute left, and they wind up winning 35-34. Pearl River Central had missed they had a bad snap on the PAT.
Boy, sometimes it's the little things.
Little things. And he just, in talking to Coach Westmoreland, he was just like that, just the fight that you want to see, you want to take away things. And he said it was just the kids didn't stop. When you get in a game like that, you want to see how they respond. And they just kept coming, and that was the biggest thing that he had to take away. Well, of course, like every coach now, they're looking to work on things. They want to improve things. So they'll be hosting St. Michael on Friday. So you get a little.
And Coach Westmoreland's former coach of the Albany Hornets. Little
6 degrees of separation there going on. So
some more drama. I guess you could say.
And they get a chance there, and he mentioned how he just in watching them against Albany, how they kind of control the clock, which is something that if you watch Live Oak, it's something that they like to do. And then he said, you go back and you look at what we did last week, and he said, I think they had 3 scores in about 10 minutes or so, something like that, really quick. He said, but at the same time, you go, okay, we're able to do it. But, they'd like to eat up some clock. So it's going to be interesting to see how the two styles kind of mesh. He's looking at St. Michael. He really liked the play of their quarterback. And he also said they got a really aggressive defense. He said they're going to come at you hard. So we've got to try to adjust.
So a little bit of circular drama coming there at the end. Volleyball, cross country, kind of having some tough go of it to get started, but we'll get to it when they get to it.
Denim will be hosting a meet at they're going to be, I think, at North Park on Saturday, 8:00.
Okay,
starting out. So Coach McLean texted me, so I'm going to get in touch with him. We'll have something by the end of the week posted online just to let you guys know what's going on.
So those other fall sports also a victim of Ida, but trying to get started as well.
Yeah.
David, to jump back over to you real quick, we want to take a second to remind folks, please remember, try to get your debris out to the road, because I believe the parish has started debris cleanup as well. Now, remember, that is not, if you live on a state or federal highway, DOTD is responsible for your debris, and they have not started yet. So please keep that in mind. If you're like, wait, nobody's picked up my debris, but you live on, say, Highway 447, well, it's not going to happen yet. So please try to be patient. Please try to keep it out of the ditch. Want to jump over to an announcement from Dr. Cantor from LDH. It would appear, and I know everybody out there is like, oh, COVID. It's still here, folks. We're still dealing with it. Dr. Cantor said, it looks like this 4th surge has peaked. Of course, that they want to say that to give people hope, but they also don't want people to back off masking, mitigation, that sort of thing. So tell us a little bit about that press conference.
Yeah, well, really in some ways, yes, it has peaked. I mean, you look at the hospitalizations, that's always, that's always a huge indicator of where a surge is at. And since reaching, over 3,000 in mid-August, we're now down to, as of today, a little over 1,500. So, I mean, it's dropped by about half in a little over a month. But on the other hand, cases, even though, yes, the daily case counts are lower than they were, during the peak of it during the summer when you had, 3,000-4,000 cases in a day. It's really not indicative of how much COVID is out there, just because there's not as much testing going on. So, it's kind of the same thing we saw with Hurricane Laura last year. Once, when you have these big events come, these big natural disasters come, it really, the COVID testing and that sort of thing kind of gets put on the back burner for a little bit. So, but I mean, the percent positivity, the number of positive cases for however many tests, that has actually decreased. I think in the most recent report, it went from 14% to 11%. So there has been improvements, but as he keeps pointing out, all 64 parishes are still in the highest risk category set by the CDC. So I mean, yeah, he wanted people to know that we are doing well, that it looks like we have peaked, that we've reached the worst of what it was, over the summer when it was just getting dire. But on the other hand, it is still bad in some ways. And if you look at the deaths haven't really slowed down at all. Especially, like, we use Livingston Parish as an example. In August, we had 55 deaths from COVID-19, which was a record. Through 15 days in September, we're at 33 deaths. So, I mean, on pace to break that this month. So, I mean, deaths are always the last indicator of a surge, because you have the cases start rising, percent positivity, then hospitalizations, and then deaths. So deaths are always the last one. So, I mean, hopefully with all the other ones dropping, we'll see that that death toll kind of go down. But as of right now, it's still, yesterday the state reported 92 deaths. Today was 55. So, I mean, there's still a lot of COVID out there, and they want people to be cautious about it, but at the same time know that it is improving. That being said, the mask mandate is still in effect. We know that until Governor Edwards made that announcement like a couple days before Ida hit. And so that is in effect until the end of the month, and we'll see at that point whether or not he decides to lift it. who knows what he decides to do at that point. But as of right now, through the end of this month, it is still in effect, the indoor mask mandate for people 5 and older, regardless of your vaccination status.
So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And to add to what you said, I mean, the Department of Health got hit by Ida just like everybody else. They're in Baton Rouge. And, testing sites, especially in places like ours, New Orleans, Tangipahoa, where Rob is from, and the North Shore, shut. Oh, well, and cannot forget Lafourche, Plaquemine, and Terrebonne, rough. And there's a bunch of other parishes in the southern part of the state that got hit that I am forgetting, Ascension. So please, keep in mind that as power returns, as sort of, don't want to call it normalcy for some of those people down south, there's a new normal, I think. But testing will come back. So it's important to remember, stay masked, continue those mitigation efforts. Mm-hmm. So really, Ida, Nicholas, and COVID is about all we have to talk about at the moment. So we do appreciate you guys joining us as myself, Rob, and David get back on track. Of course, I was out for 2 weeks on COVID quarantine, and then we had a week, and then Ida. So trying to get back on track. So going to let them introduce themselves as we wrap this show up. This time I'm going to start on my left.
Hey, this is Rob Irma. I'm sports editor here at the Livingston Parish News.
And this is David Gray, lifestyle editor with the Livingston Parish News.
And my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. One last time, I want to tell everybody we appreciate you joining us. Please remember that the news is on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays at $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. We appreciate you guys joining us, and we're going to see you next time.